All right, so welcome everybody to this client case study. I've got one of my good friends and clients who is on the line, Caleb Preston. Caleb, are you there, man?
I am. Yes, great to be on.
Glad to have you on, Caleb. Thank you so much. And Caleb, you have two companies. You've got McKinley Mortgage and you've got Alaska Financial. Can you tell me a little bit about what McKinley does and what Alaska does, just so we can kind of frame it up for this overview today?
For sure. So McKinley Mortgage is a company my folks started back in the late 80s. What McKinley does is it helps individuals that have sold a property and carried back the financing on a real estate note, also known as carrying the paper, seller financing, owner financing. We'll give them cash for that note, typically at a discount. So help them cash out that loan. We want some cash today. We bought over 3,000 notes over the years. Alaska Financial is our fund that basically enables investors, typically retirees, high net worth clients, to enjoy stable income from a pool of those performing notes. So McKinley's marketing to find the notes, and Alaska Financial buys those, analyzes the risks, and manages them to give investors a stable 7% return currently for 5 years. So that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, great to be on.
Awesome, man. Well, and again, thank you so much because I think a lot of people always want to know like what it's like to take a look inside coaching. And Caleb, we've been coaching together for about a year and a half, give or take, right? Somewhere in that range.
I think so. Wasn't it fall of 2013?
Yeah, so it's been around that range, right? So it's one of those things where I like to go back and not only do a review for you so you can see kind of how much progress you've made, but really too for other people to kind of see like what change can come out of doing some coaching. So thanks for being willing to open up your business today and let other people see a little bit of behind the scenes and also just kind of share what some of your experiences were. I just can't thank you enough because I love serving people, but it's always good to know what numbers back up and what stats kind of back up what we do here. So thank you so much for doing that, man.
You bet. Thanks, Jason.
Awesome. So I want to just jump into some questions for you. We talked about this earlier, but like when you started coaching, Caleb, can you describe what your business was like, as in, what kind of things were working inside the business and what wasn't working inside the business? Kind of take them on, two separate pieces here. But can you just share with me? I mean, it's not like you guys weren't doing well when we started, for crying out loud. You guys are doing awesome. So can you tell me what was working, and let's start from there?
Totally. So my main role when we started coaching back September of 13 was being the primary individual raising the investor capital for our fund, Alaska Financial. Now we were still a pretty small fund at the time, but we had raised $10 million, I believe, in 2012, and then another $10 million in 2013. And we basically had plateaued with our money raising, and so I was at a point where my personal time management I can only go so far with my own capacity. It was time to do things differently, to approach the capital raising from a different idea and systematic approach to increase the results. So money raising was doing great, but it wasn't real scalable. Also on the marketing side with McKinley, to find real estate notes, we were just bumping along with pretty low lead numbers as direct mail was getting more and more expensive and less effective. And so we had a terrific model, highly proven, no losses to our investors since we started the fund in 2005, but we were having a hard time scaling from a marketing and sales standpoint on two key areas of our company: raising capital for AFC and then buying notes with McKinley.
Awesome. So, I mean, again, to your point, I mean, raising, $10 million on your own, I mean, obviously that's no small feat. And for a lot of companies, I would say that $10 million to them might be a giant number considering what they're used to raising. But for you guys, like you said, that was kind of just getting started. And so not only to be able to know that you were kind of starting to plateau, and we'll show that in some of the numbers in just a little bit, but you guys were kind of having that plateau and you were the only one doing it. So scaling you wasn't very effective, correct?
No, it was almost so much time in the day and so much energy too, or sanity.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know when you were seeking out, what was some of the support, one of the things you did, just to kind of frame it up for people that are watching this, is you did a little voice mastery program to go through and figure out what were some of your own personal blocks, because, you realized that was something that you needed to look at. So you want to say anything about that or kind of how that framed for you?
Yeah, and that really was, I believe, kind of the on-ramp of our relationship. Is that little voice mastery program was sort of a starting point that was beneficial for me from a self-concept and a paradigm standpoint to really help me operate and look at a bigger level. And then part of that process was saying, you know what, I'm doing a disservice to my team, our investors, our clients, if I keep operating as a lone wolf. And I need people on my team that can help me go to the next level and look what was a life. And that was part of the decision. I wanted to bring you on to help me become better at all that I do and help the company as a result too. So that was a big part of that.
Awesome. So not only, and again, just kind of framing up what you're saying here. So I wrap my brain around it too, right? Is it wasn't just being able to get some better inbound lead numbers and work on it, but it was like, how do I grow the team? And I remember you specifically asking, like, how do you become the leader that can work with a team of people and kind of create that sales manager role for yourself, so that you can have a team of people that are reporting to you, you track their numbers, track their stats. So it was not only accountability for you, but helping to hold other people accountable. And for crying out loud, man, I remember when we started the process, you had some people on that needed to go right away. We've had other people that have come in, and we've had to figure out who's really the performers and who's not, just based on the numbers. And I think that's something that before wasn't even around. And then as we started to get clearer on it, you became even better as a leader, and that's continued to help accelerate you inside the business. Correct?
For sure, totally. Yeah,
awesome.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, let me actually ask you this. I mean, what do you think for you personally, Caleb, has changed the most since you've begun the coaching process? Since beginning coaching, like, what has changed the most for you? What would you say?
Yeah, well, I think
that's kind of a loaded question, right?
Yeah, we kind of hit the nail on the head on the last on the slide. Is that it really this really has helped me increase my capacity to learn how to lead more effectively, manage and really engage a team that have the same common values and goals and whatnot around leveraging our strengths to build a system and build a business that's outside really my own capacity as an individual. And so coming in originally, it was more, hey, what do I have to do to get more done to boost the company, which was a very small, narrow perspective. And now it's looking at, hey, how can we empower the team together with the systems and the vision, et cetera, and the resources to make this thing be way bigger and way more beneficial for all. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that mental aspect of really being able to trust in my own strengths as a leader, and also empowering and trusting my team instead of just trying to be a micromanager or do it on myself, which can be a big struggle for small business owners.
For sure, right? It's sometimes you just feel like it's easier to just do it on your own. It's like, if you want it done right, you just do it by yourself, or you think that you want to clone yourself or kind of be in that capacity, and that's where the challenge can really come into play, right?
Yeah, that's one of the big struggles, and this has helped me best through that process.
Yeah, and I would say this too, Caleb. One of the other things that's unique about you is this isn't the only program you do. I mean, you do other mastermind programs, and you go to other training programs. I mean, this is one thing that you do, kind of inside this. What would you say is different about some of the other programs versus what you do in one-on-one coaching? What's the difference about being on a call every week versus popping into a mastermind? Can you tell me a little bit about that too, and frame up what's different about this type of coaching?
Yeah, for sure. This is the only ongoing, weekly coaching program that I do, and I think the significant advantage of that is it gives you time, and it gives you a space where there's enough follow through and accountability over time to actually see kind of the foundation of results established. Some of the issues at times with infrequent community events or mastermind groups is you kind of get this, you go to the event, you get this big old event high, you get a bunch of good notes, and those notes end up collecting dust the next couple months back in the office. And so what is nice about our program here is because it is intentional, it's consistent, and there's outputs of what's expected at the end of the call to do throughout the week, and there's accountability looking back around. I find we simply get more stuff done because of that communication and that accountability.
Yeah, and that's basically what I want everybody to know, is that that's the difference. Is like I started out, and the reason why I got this business moving in the first place was I was going to events too and having my notes collect dust. And then all of a sudden I started coaching and started making some serious progress on those things that just said, look, it wasn't just about understanding the concept, but how do I go back and implement them in the business? And so what I want to share with everybody as we're going through your stats today, Caleb, is just how you can benefit from having that weekly implementation process that changes the most. So are you cool if I dive into some numbers that you've already given me in advance of our call?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool, man. So let me pull these up here. This was kind of the coaching process, and hopefully the numbers will pop all the way up in here in just a second. There we go. Is if you look at kind of how this process worked, this has all the actual money raised since we've started doing the actual coaching process together, right?
Yeah.
So you had said in here, and I'll just kind of frame this up. Here's the 10 million that you had said you were kind of plateauing in 2012 and 2013, and then look where we started coaching right at the end of 13. Right, yeah. So and now we're just early 2015, at least in the recording of this video. We're early 2015, and so we're on track, like you said. 2014 to just over 20 million. and then on track probably for 25 million plus in 2015. Is that right?
For sure. Yeah, we'll probably 25 million plus, maybe 30 this year, and we honestly haven't really. We could do a lot more to scale that, and so as we get our note production up on the McKinley side, then I mean I can see us having a system next year that could do 40 million plus. So it's pretty exciting.
And again, what when it was 10 million, it was just you. So what were some of the things that's changed in the last year and a half or so to get you up to 20 and 25? It's not just you're making all the phone calls, taking those inbound leads. Like what's been the actual change that's happened?
Yeah, so it's so really for 2012 and 13, it was still very much a process of me beating the street and deepening relationships with our network here in Alaska. Most of our investors are in Alaska. And so really it was me out there taking the time, doing the calls, doing the meetings, and that still has been a process for 14, but what shifted is we've been able to build a systematic structure where we can enable, which boost referrals from our current network of clients. We have some systems that allow investors to reinvest effectively. We're able to scale some regulation change, which enabled us to be able to do some limited marketing and build a website and whatnot. And so we've really focused on how do we build systems and empower our current investors to be our best sales force, so to speak, and referring their friends and investing more as it meets their needs. And so it's been a shift from really me working harder to, hey, how do we do this a little differently and actually have some leverage and scale to for a much bigger system.
Caleb, that kind of reminds me as you're talking about some of the scales and systems. I mean, we've done everything from creating like email systems and follow-up systems and having, screening systems earlier in the process. But it reminds me of one of the stories that that you had where we were talking about sending out very basic emails and sending out emails to clients for money raising. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah.
Right? Do you remember, and I don't know if you have the exact stats off the top of your head, and I know this is random, I just threw this at you, but do you remember we had you send out one email, speaking of going back and getting additional dollars out of your investors. Do you remember how that, what the outcome was that, at least roughly?
Yeah, I think we had sent about maybe 100 emails or so, 120, and I believe I had 30 to 40 responses, which was way more.
Huge.
And it was just really simple. It was just like a sentence or two, and that was about it, which kind of surprised me, but it was awesome to see the power of simplicity.
Yeah, and I just remember, you sent out that email and you had a ton of inbound requests, and then we had a bunch of other, capital raised as a result of that because it was leads that were had gone dormant and some others that were sitting in there. And it's simple things like that can make a huge difference. But and again, it's just they were things that you weren't doing before that you hadn't thought about. Is kind of how I like to look at it. And by going back and just evaluating each of those areas and saying, well, what are the things that you could be doing that you're not? Look at what type of change we've impacted. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah, and that's been a big part of it for us. It's been progressive, ongoing changes. And when you layer a 1% increase here, 2% increase there, etc., and you layer those on top of each other, eventually you start to get some significant impact over time as you can leverage all those little tweaks and improvements in the system.
Yeah, because it's not like just one day I told you one thing and magically everything changed. I mean, that's what the whole point is. Every single week you've made a lot of changes. And I will say this too, for people who are paying attention, the one thing you got to know about Caleb that I think it makes him very successful in our coaching relationship is he is a masterful implementer. And what I mean by that is, Caleb, you're willing to run it to the wall all the time and just try everything. And look, not all of it works, but you run it to the wall and give it, as much as you can to make sure that it gets implemented in its fullest detail to make sure that if it does work, it's going to work for you.
Totally. Yeah. It comes down to execution, and thankfully myself and our team are good at trying stuff and seeing what sticks and what doesn't, and moving forward regardless.
Yeah, and I would also say this too about you, Caleb, is that you're very good at finding great people around you. I know you've got marketing assistants and you've got other people, and that's the biggest thing that I've seen from a scale standpoint that you've done really well is you're very quick to find other good resources, so that again, as we've grown and you've moved forward, is that you don't just do it all yourself. You've got other people that do it, because you're not, even though you do a lot of the creation of the content and things like that, you have other people that move with you as opposed to you doing it completely on your own now.
No, thank you. Yeah, it takes a team, and we're blessed to have a good one. So,
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, let me jump into this next piece here, because this was for the secondary piece. Let's see if I can get these up here. So It's loading a little oddly, but it should be loading in just a second nonetheless. So this is inbound leads for note sales, and hopefully I didn't just over-click it. I might have to come back, but there's inbound leads for note sales, and again, we started coaching kind of right at the end. Oh, yep, it's going to go away. All right, so I'll pull it back up here. But can you talk to me a little bit, Caleb, and as I get the slide back up, kind of about the inbound leads? This was another area that you said, man, this was a very manual process, and you were having direct mail that was kind of slowing you down. Do you mind talking about that and telling me about how your process has changed and evolved since we started working together?
Yeah, for sure. So the real heart of our business, I mean, the reason we can pay investors stable, say 7-8% return, is because we're really experts at finding and buying these existing owner-financed real estate notes, which is where the seller basically is the bank for their buyer, and the buyer ends up making monthly payments to their seller when they purchase their property. And so those notes, those notes and deeds of trust are on public record. And so historically, over the years, we did a lot of direct mail to holders of those notes, offering cash to if they had a desire to cash out the contract. But that, as I mentioned, was really the point of diminishing returns and was getting more and more expensive, and there was more and more saturated competition in that marketplace. And we really were doing nothing on the web. I recall that we just basically started doing online marketing really at the time we jumped on with you. There in I guess this would have been, let's see, it would have been 13, right?
Right at the end of 2013.
Yeah, right in 2013. And so right there in November, you can see it jump. And so a big part of it for us was getting away from a expensive and really not that scalable process to starting to build out scalable systems and infrastructure primarily around the web, but also other channels that would enable us to have more scalability, more predictability for our lead generation, and then also more automation over time, which we're now starting to capitalize on, making our marketing and pre-qualification systems, our sales systems more automated and much more effective and efficient for our sales teams. So,
well, and that's the thing, right? It's like direct mail does have some diminishing return. It's interesting because we've recently, in the last couple of months, even been talking about going back and revisiting some direct marketing through direct mail, but with a very different intention than what was there before, right? Is now that we've dialed in the specific lead profiles and really set up, who responds and tested a lot of it out online, we've talked about using direct mail as opposed to this big, broad, shotgun-style campaign to getting really specific and really targeting your whale-type clients that have large notes and sending them very specific things because of some of the calculations that we've done on what the value is off those leads, right?
Totally, exactly, and that's the fun thing now is now we have a more of a framework for we have the confidence of how we can engage our note sale prospects in a way that's relevant and beneficial to them. We can give them excessive value, and then we can really help convert them into qualified leads in our sales funnel. And so that gives us a confidence to go back to direct mail, as you said, with a much different approach. And I think it'll be super effective.
Right.
But it takes hands-on experience and a different perspective to kind of look at these things differently, And that's what it's taken for us. It's taken time, trying things, different systems and processes. But now we've got the confidence to really scale and go to the next level. And we'll see too with the inbound leads there. We tested a lot of stuff. Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't over the course of 2014. But our lead numbers jumped significantly. Now, coming into 15, you can see they spiked significantly, especially there in March. We're on track right now for May. We're already at 50 leads right now so far for this month. And so
we're on the 12th for the date recording, right? So for crying out loud, you're not even halfway through the month, and you're already more than halfway through your greatest month,
Yeah, and we're now putting in place systems and processes that can help us scale even more. So the fun thing is this stuff isn't linear. I think that's a good reminder for coaching clients too, is that I think in business we assume or hope stuff can be linear, especially growth, revenue, or whatnot. But it really is, you got to invest a lot up front, and then there can be a geometric scale or growth later on as you start to have this momentum that builds. And that's kind of where we're at with the tipping point is basically we put in place a foundation so we can scale up the lead generation conversion significantly in 15, and we're excited.
Yeah, tell me what you said the other day. You were telling me one of your wins the last couple of weeks is you said you were on the phone with one of your competitors, or you had heard through one of your competitors, right? About, you know what I'm talking about?
That's right. Yeah.
Can you mind mentioning that? Because that was entertaining. I think it'd be fun for anybody else to know that that's what you've scaled to. You know what I mean?
So I sent my team. This is a good example. I used to go to these conferences. Now I send my team. I sent the team down to a conference in Vegas that's all about the note industry. This was just I think 2 weekends ago. And anyways, one of the competitors or other note brokers there was talking to one of my processors, or Margo was there, and he was saying, yeah, one of my biggest challenges now is the fact that you guys, 80% of the time, a note seller's already talked to you to get an offer, and so he's like, you guys keep beating me to the punch on the web lead generation.
Yep.
And it was fun to know that one of our competitors' biggest issues is the fact that we're dominating the web, and I believe we already have. I think our Google impression share, meaning our market share of certain keywords, is significant, 50 to 80%. So it's fun to really start kind of taking over some of that space as a primary presence on the web for those that want the value of getting a free offer and want some cash for their note. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, and what a great spot when your competitors say, our greatest problem is they've already had a quote from you. I mean, man, if that doesn't just say you're ahead of the curve of everybody else. And, it was like people were in this space. I mean, I remember when we started this thing, Caleb, people were already marketing in this space, and it was very competitive. And I know you guys pay a somewhat of a premium to do this, but because your ads, we've been able to get them so targeted, your cost per lead has stayed relatively low because you've targeted really well. And while everybody else is out there marketing very generically, you guys are getting really specific, dialing into cities, dialing into all these areas that are making a difference, and it's helping you to keep your cost per lead down. Where your other competitors are just kind of advertising blanket, like they're doing the same thing that you used to do with direct mail, but online, whereas you have the very strategic approach that we've been setting up for you.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
It's been really productive.
Cool.
Exciting.
Well, with the good, there also comes some, maybe not so good. And I want to bring up this other thing because we've talked about hard money leads as well, and I think it's worth discussing this next section because we did a similar process with hard money leads that you pulled in for McKinley Mortgage, but we're in a different spot. And I think it's good to talk about, well, look, September, October, the leads were fairly non-existent. Then they had a huge spike, and now back in October of last year, we kind of paused everything. And this is an important thing. We've said there's some things that work, some things that don't, but let's talk about some of the things that worked about hard money leads, because obviously we got some, but then we shut them off. So do you mind talking about why that strategy was put in place and what we did there?
For sure. So yeah, a couple of things. So in addition to, buying notes is the core of our business with McKinley, but we do also offer commercial and investment lending for business purpose loans or hard money loans. And so what happened is we started scaling the online marketing pretty significantly, as you can see, jumping from almost nothing to 40 plus leads there in November, December of 2013. And we found that we were really good at generating the leads, but our problem is that our lead qualification system was not good enough, and we ended up inundating our sales team with poor quality leads that ended up taking away their time from the leads they should have been focusing on, and ended up being really a break-even project for us in some areas of the marketing. And so we decided to pull the reins back in, wind down the marketing after a significant test time, and we're going to jump back into that space now once we have the right team and the right pre-qualification systems refined. But it was a good lesson learned. We learned that, hey, it's one thing to generate leads, it's another thing to make sure that they're qualified and that you can process them effectively into funded deals.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent example. This is like you can win in one category, and you can just kind of have not the same results. And sometimes when we start to change advertising campaigns for people, we can get a lot of leads, but they need to figure out how to dial in specifically the quality, the caliber, the process. And like you said, this was a big sifting process, and you had to sift through way more leads than you wanted to. They were getting distracted with things that weren't generating income. But look at what we've talked about before, is that we talked about being the pump handle. Right, it's like pumping water, and like you have to sit at that pump and just keep pumping. And before you had these two pump handles that you were pumping, and if you pumped one, it worked. If you pumped the other, it worked. But you couldn't pump them all at the same time. Now you're starting to get teams in place that are doing some pumping for you. Marketing is becoming a pump for you that is helping you to turn it up. And this is my favorite part is this is just an exact result of you dialing up the marketing, then dialing back the marketing based upon what you needed to do, where most people are just kind of trying to figure out, well, I hope our marketing does something. We just always have to run it. It's something you got to do for the long term, whereas you guys could literally, like a faucet, turn on your leads or turn off your leads based upon what you needed at that moment.
Totally. Yeah, we're at the point now where instead of just me, pumping the handle of raising money on one side of the business and pumping the handle of finding notes to place that money on the other, now we're building pipelines where basically, as you mentioned, we can open them up or close them down with the valve. And the cool thing is, it really is. This is probably one of the biggest wins because obviously having scalable marketing and sales is really the core to any business, regardless of your industry. And so the confidence to know that we have now the knowledge and the systematic capacity in the team to go ahead and scale and ramp in certain areas really is a really encouraging thing as a business owner. Knowing that you have that ability and you've got a recipe so that if you want to scale in this area, you've got a very high likelihood of getting those results. And that's a good thing. It gives me more confidence to make other executive decisions throughout the day and the week, etc. Knowing we have this ability with a proven system.
Yeah, and especially with both of these inbound lead funnels that we've talked about, Caleb, the other thing that I just want to mention that we've talked about over the last, especially a couple months, is that you've started to have issues where, going back to the last version of leads that we've been talking about, is that you're starting to hit capacity with your existing team because you've got a couple of sales reps, and now they're starting to get more inbound leads than they know what to do with. So the cool thing is that we've talked about is, well, now that we have a dialable lead gen system, and if we dial up and say, hey, the average rep can handle 20 or 30 leads a month, well, that means if we want to add another sales rep, all we have to do is dial up your marketing machine, get you more leads, and ta-da, we've got enough room for another sales rep, right?
Exactly. Yeah, our latest problem is we have too many leads, exactly, and our sales capacity is not there. So it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So that's in business is always one problem or solution to the next, and
right.
And now that's our main focus is ramping up sales to handle all these good leads we're getting.
Right, and I know that's the plan right now is getting more sales reps out there and having that as your problem. I mean, what a great problem to have. Too many leads, you need to hire more sales reps, but knowing too that you can scale them. So it's not a question of like, when do we hire a sales rep? When will they make us money back? If you bring them in and you can start to follow up, then they're going to start paying for themselves really quickly.
Exactly.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for doing this. I want to ask you a couple more questions, then we'll wrap because I know your time is important and I want to be respectful of that. So thanks for taking the time out to do this, man. But let me ask you just kind of on the personal side, we've talked a lot of stats and a lot of numbers, and there's a lot of coaches out there, in my opinion, that kind of like do the personal development coaching, and they'll make you feel real good, but they never have any stats. And I like to be the reverse. I like to have the stats and make sure that you're feeling really good as well. That's kind of the byproduct of really good coaching, in my opinion, is the stats reflect the results. But I do want to know too from you, Caleb, if you've got something on the top of your head here, is what's been your single most personal change from coaching? What have you got out of it personally that might be somewhat intangible?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really think back to one of our sessions. You said, Caleb, you gotta quit being the how guy and start being the why guy. And to kind of frame the context of that, I was the guy that knew I was the best at doing everything. And so the problem was I was hanging on to everything. I knew how to do it, and I wasn't empowering others. I wasn't delegating and empowering others to come alongside and in the end do it better than myself with the teamless process. And so it's been fun to see the shift for my perspective and kind of my ethos of how I operate now it's a process of, hey, how can I empower others with the right resources, opportunity, delegation, etc., so then they can go out and then they can make their mark, create value, and in the end, make a much better result for our clients, for us, for themselves, etc. And so that's been big. It's enabled me to help shift and enabled me to give up, you feel like you're giving up more control, but in the end, you have way more as a business owner. It's kind of this ironic, reverse. But so that's been big. It's given me the freedom to, as a part of that, and not only does it give you more freedom as a business owner, it gives you way more, net profit, scale, and a more valuable business. And it's relying on good team and good systems, and not on you as the owner. And so that's probably the biggest change, and that's been significant.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for that. And again, that's the big thing, right? The difference between being the why person and knowing why you're doing the things you're doing versus being the how person who knows how to do it and is the person doing it. It's just such a big shift to be able to help move that. So that's huge, man. I really appreciate that. You had kind of given me in advance. That's probably part of why I put this deck together. You'd said some of the things that you got out of coaching. I'm just going to put these up here. And do you mind you don't have to talk about each one individually necessarily, but these are some of the things that we did to get you into the right place. Do you mind just kind of mentioning a couple of these of like what's been helpful as you see things that stand out to you on here that you had mentioned before?
Yep, totally. And so, yeah, I was a lone wolf, and so Jason, you gave me a lot of perspective as a 19 early on. Learning how to lead by the numbers. Time management's been huge. I mean, if someone can know how to prioritize their time, and if they can have integrity around their time management strategy or whatever, that's ginormous. Scalable lead gen, we talked about that. Sales scripting, asking the right questions. From a sales standpoint, learning how to really go into that person's world, and instead of just kind of just spewing facts or topics or benefits of a company, how do you really enter their space and create and offer them value when it's aligned? And so, yeah, there's been a lot of stuff. I'd say the biggest thing here is probably learning how to effectively manage time, scale leads, and really ultimately lead probably some of the biggest values I see.
Yeah, and Caleb, it kind of takes me to one other point I want to make within you specifically is that, if I would have said to you in the beginning, like, do you know how to ask the right questions and sell your company? My guess is you probably would have said a resounding, of course, I'm really good at what I do. Like, I don't think you ever felt like that was something when we first started talking that you would have said, man, Jason, help me ask the right questions because it's really lacking. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Yeah. And it's interesting because as you're thinking, as we're looking at some of these things on here, sometimes people think that they're doing all of these things really well, and I think it has a lot to do with how humble you are, Caleb, to be willing to work on these areas of your business, and then looking back, say, man, you were just talking about your business and still doing really well with it, but we've made some just, like you said, those 1% shifts that have just really turned into the right type of things that have made a huge difference in growing the business, and they didn't have to be monumental, but they were just small things that changed over time.
That's right. And in business, when you're in your own business, you're so close to it. Often you can lose perspective there, and you really, you don't know what you don't know. And so, with having someone, like yourself, that can have a third-party, more objective perspective, especially when you already have your own personal experience in your own business and others, with seeing sales and marketing work or not work, it's really healthy to have someone else kind of speaking into your life, so to speak, and really helping be a sounding board and kind of help bring to light things that might not be obvious to yourself or myself, who's ever in the business, but that's really a healthy thing, and so yeah, that was part of it, and is knowing you can help come in and really be on a sounding board and say, whoa, I could do this a lot better. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, and not be emotionally attached too, right? I mean, I'm not emotionally attached to the employees that you have, to the processes. I don't know that you've been doing something for 15 years one way and you don't want to change it. I mean, I think you're willing to make changes anyway, but that can happen inside a business, right? Is that the owner can feel like they've been doing things for a certain way for a long time, so why not? I think because, you've got that mindset of I'm just wanting to grow, that you were able to make some big changes. So that's awesome, man. Very cool. So, Caleb, I guess last question for you on this is, what are you most excited about the future of your company? Like, what are you looking forward to? What are you excited by? Because I kind of feel like we're just in the first inning here, and there's already been some awesome things. But tell me a little about what you're excited about.
For sure. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff happening. We're on track to have Alaska Financial over $100 million by 2018, and that could be the foundation for much larger things, significance over time. And so, just from a purely business standpoint, we're on a significantly exciting growth track and trend. And then from a personal standpoint, it's so fun to see what personal growth has already occurred to this point, and I'm excited for the additional growth personally in myself and my team, and just seeing how you create it. I mean, to me, business is it's a fun game where you can make the world a better place, create value, and have a blast seeing an idea come to life. It's really an act of creation, and so I'm excited to see how that continues in the years ahead, in whatever context that may be. So it's exciting, and looking forward to the future.
Awesome, man. Well, and I'm excited to be a part of it going forward with you and to help you kind of continue to grow this and turn it into what it deserves to be. And I love knowing that, we share the same attitude of it's not so much of like, well, what is the possibility for these companies to grow, but like it's more of what is your own personal capacity? What can you do? And it's not like, can we just grow it up to a level where it's a pretty good size? The question just becomes, what is it capable of doing? What are you capable of doing, and how are you capable of growing it to the level that you deserve to be at, that the business is? And as the reward for solving a problem in a business is usually an even bigger problem. But the good news, that usually comes with even bigger dollars behind it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, relationships and everything else. It's awesome.
Yeah, and so Caleb, I just want to say thanks for taking the time out to do this. I hope as people are watching this that they can kind of see, they can see a little bit about themselves, that maybe they were operating at a level of success and they want to take it to the next level. They've hit that plateau and they want to grow. What would you, just kind of in closing, Caleb, what would you kind of say to anybody who is trying to figure this out in the beginning? What would you want to look back and tell yourself, day one before you did your little voice program, when you started coaching? What would you say to yourself if you can kind of think back that far?
Yeah, I remember I had objections on jumping on for two reasons. Number one, my ego. I was concerned to bring somebody in to a sensitive space of seeing the heart of my business, and giving some honest feedback on what needed to change. So that was the first objection I had. And the second one was going to be the cost. I mean, to me, that was a big investment. And when you're at that stage, my perspective is more focused on what will this cost me, not what's the value this is going to create. And so now, looking back over the last year and a half, I see the immense value that's been created, way beyond the cost of what you charge. And so, but at that time, when I was on the other side of it, I had more of a scarcity mentality as opposed to more of an abundance mentality now looking back. And so my thought for folks is just, hey, if you are in that similar spot, if you're willing to do what it takes to, work with Jason or whoever's coaching and implement, and if you're willing to grow and listen and be humble to apply this stuff, it's going to have huge results. So if you're committed in that sense, there's no reason not to jump in and invest in yourself and invest in your business. You really can't afford not to if you want to be all you can be. That's my 2 cents.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much. I know so many people always say, like, hey, can I talk to some of your clients and hear from them what their stories have been and what their successes are? And so it's nice that we were able to frame this up so people can go and watch it whenever. And I appreciate any time that you've spent with me to help this grow. And I love being able to help you grow and move forward, Caleb. So thanks so much again for being on today. And I hope for everybody that's watching, you were just able to see a little peek into a little bit of life of coaching, from what it's like to be on the phone, every week and have some coaching sessions and hear what some of the real world results are. So Caleb, thanks again so much for being on.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Jason. Have a great day.
All right. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.